Welcome back to the deep dive, where we really try to unpack these big ideas and make them accessible for you.
Yeah, totally.
So in our last deep dive, we started digging into Daniel Kahneman's revolutionary work, Thinking Fast and Slow.
Such a game changer.
It really is.
Yeah.
We introduced that core idea of our minds having these two modes, right? System one, fast, automatic, intuitive, kind of gut feeling driven.
Your autopilot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then system two, that's the slow, effortful, deliberate, logical part that does the heavy lifting when we really focus.
And we saw how they work together, but also, crucially, how they can clash, which happens a lot.
More than we think. So today, we're going much deeper. We're peeling back the layers on, well, how that fast, intuitive thinking can actually lead us pretty far wrong.
Yeah, we're diving into the illusions of intuition, how our gut feelings, even when they feel so right, can be based on, well, not much. We'll look at overconfidence, why we're so sure we're right, even with tons of uncertainty.
And those cognitive traps, the biases that just trip us up constantly, from like huge business decisions down to just, judging someone you just met.
It's going to get you thinking about your own thinking, that's for sure. Kahneman's insights here are just profound.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission today is really to distill the key takeaways from Kahneman's look at heuristics, those mental shortcuts, and the biases they inevitably create.
We want to understand why. Why do we make these predictable mistakes? How does it actually play out?
And most importantly, what does it mean for how you navigate your world? Making choices, judging risk, even how you see yourself. This isn't just theory, it's about the nuts and bolts of your own mind. Okay, so here's where it gets really fascinating and maybe a little bit unsettling.
Definitely unsettling.
We feel confident all the time, right? Like deeply, bone deep confident in our judgments. But Kahneman just pulls the rug out and says, hold on, that feeling of certainty. Often it's just an illusion.
The illusion of validity, that's his term for it. It's that unwarranted confidence we have, even when our judgments are based on really flimsy, unreliable, maybe even totally outdated info.
And the crazy part is why we feel confident. It's not about how good the evidence actually is.
No, not at all. It's about how coherent the story feels. How well does the narrative hang together? That's what System 1, our fast thinking, cares about.
So it just grabs whatever bits of information are available.
Exactly. Often very limited bits.
Right. And weaves them into the best, neatest story it can. And because the story feels complete and makes sense internally.
Boom. Confidence. We just buy it. System 1 doesn't flag up the missing pieces.
That coherence is so seductive. And Kahneman saw this firsthand, didn't he? Back in his early days in the Israeli Defense Forces.
Yeah, it's a great story. He was involved in selecting candidates for officer training. They had these intensive interviews, field tests, all designed to predict who'd be a good leader.
Sounds thorough.
It did. And the interviewers, they felt incredibly confident in their picks. They'd spend time with a candidate, get that strong gut feeling, and be totally convinced, yep, this one's got it.
But I have a feeling there's a but coming.
Oh, there's a big but.
Yeah.
He points out that when they actually looked at the data, the statistical validity of those confident predictions, it was terrible.
How terrible.
Little better than random guesses, is how he put it. They knew this. Objectively, statistically, they knew the interviews weren't really predicting success.
And yet, they still felt sure.
That's the core of the illusion. The feeling of confidence persisted, even faced with the cold, hard numbers saying otherwise. It's like that Miller-Lyer illusion, the two lines with the arrows.
Yeah, where one looks longer, even though you know they're the same.
Exactly. Your logical system 2 knows the lines are equal, but your intuitive system 1 sees them as different length. You can't shake that visual perception, that stubborn feeling, that subjective certainty despite the facts. That's the illusion of validity.
That is such a perfect analogy. Wow. It really shows how that immediate gut feeling can just steamroll logic. And this connects straight into another huge Kahneman idea, WYSIAD.
Right. What you see is all there is. Pronounced whizzy-80, basically.
Catchy. So WYSID means System 1 just leaps to conclusions using only the information right in front of it. It doesn't consider what's missing.
Zero consideration for missing info. It's not built for that. So if you get a quick, positive description, like Kahneman's example, someone says Mindick is intelligent and strong.
Okay, sounds good.
System 1 instantly paints a picture. Good leader. It creates this coherent, positive story. It doesn't nudge you to ask, Wait, is he also corrupt? Is he cruel? Those missing details could totally flip the script, but System 1 doesn't care. The available story is good enough.
And we just run with it.
We run with it, and this just demolishes that common assumption that confidence means competence, or that feeling sure means you're right.
It really does. WIS basically means we feel like we know way more than we actually do, because System 1 creates such a smooth story. We are, as Kahneman says, often blind to our own blindness.
Think about how this plays out. Forget the military for a second. Think about hiring someone. That short interview, the handshake, maybe one clever answer.
You form a strong impression fast.
Super fast.
Yeah.
And super confident. And then that initial halo, that first impression, filters everything else you learn about them. It's hard to shake.
Or judging a new neighbor, or even an investment pitch that just sounds really slick and convincing.
Exactly. We mistake the coherence of the story for the quality of the evidence. That's the illusion of validity in action every day.
So the big takeaway here is, watch out for that feeling of certainty, especially with limited info. Your brain is a great storyteller, but it's a terrible truth detector just based on feelings alone.
Amen to that. Question the coherence. Ask what's missing.
Okay, so if System 1 loves a coherent story, it also seems to love things that are easy, right? Like if something pops into your head easily, you assume it's more important or common.
Precisely. That leads us right into the availability heuristic. It's another one of those mental shortcuts. We judge how frequent or likely something is based purely on how easily examples come to mind.
So easy recall equals higher frequency in our heads.
You got it. If retrieving examples feels fluent and effortless, we judge that category as bigger, more common, more probable. Our memory works by association, right? One idea sparks others. If that spark catches easily and spreads fast.
We think the original spark must be really significant.
Exactly. It's efficient, usually works okay, but man, can it lead us astray.
Like that classic experiment with the letter K.
Oh yeah, that's a perfect illustration. Kahneman and Tversky asked people a simple question. In English, is the letter K more likely to be the first letter of a word or the third letter?
Okay, words starting with K. Kai, Kang,
Yeah.
no, they come pretty easily.
Right. Super easy. Words with K as the third letter. It's like, acknowledge, ask. It takes more effort, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely harder to think of.
So because words starting with K are more available in our memory, most people confidently say is more common in the first position.
But that's wrong.
Statistically, it's wrong. For letters like K, L, N, R, V, they actually appear more often as the third letter. But our brain substitutes the easy question, how easily can I think of examples, for the hide statistical one. Availability overrides accuracy.
Wow, and it's not just letters. Kahneman had his own aha moment with this, didn't he? About politicians.
He did. He admitted he'd long believed that adultery was just way more common among politicians than, say, doctors or lawyers. He even had these, elaborate theories worked out in his head about why.
Sounds plausible, maybe. Power corrupts.
That's what his System 1 told him, but then he realized, wait a second. Politicians' scandals get reported way more. They're plastered all over the news.
Ah, so they're just more available in memory because of media coverage?
Exactly. It wasn't necessarily about actual frequency, but about journalistic choices, making politician transgressions far more mentally available. It was a personal wake-up call for him about how easily his own beliefs could be shaped by this bias.
It really makes you question your own assumptions about, well, everything. How much of what we think is common knowledge is just based on what gets repeated the most?
It raises a massive question. How often are our views on risk, or how common something is, driven not by data, but just by a vivid, easily recalled example, a dramatic news story?
And this can spiral, right, into what he calls availability cascades.
Absolutely. This is where media coverage and public reaction feed off each other. An issue gets mentioned, people talk about it, the media covers it more because people are talking. It creates this self-reinforcing loop.
So dramatic stuff, plane crashes, shark attacks, celebrity gossip dominates our attention.
Totally dominates because it's vivid and easily recalled. Meanwhile, slow burn, less dramatic, but maybe way more critical issues like, say, declining education standards or gradual environmental damage get ignored. They just aren't available enough.
Think about when a big celebrity dies, like Michael Jackson. It consumes everything for weeks.
Right. It pushes aside other news that might objectively affect more people's lives. It's the power of availability.
And the LR scare with the apples is like the ultimate cautionary tale here.
Oh, totally. 1989, LR was this chemical used on apples. Some lab studies showed it caused tumors in rats, but at like insanely high doses that had no relation to human exposure.
But the story took off.
Big time. Media ran with it, often using really emotional images, kids, apples, cancer fears. Meryl Streep testified before Congress about it. It became this huge public panic.
Even though the science didn't really support that level of fear.
The scientific consensus was that the risk from actual consumption was negligible, but the fear was available. Vivid images, constant media attention. It created this massive availability cascade. Apple sales plummeted, the industry lost millions.
And LR was eventually withdrawn, not because of science, but because of the panic.
Precisely. It highlights another key error Kahneman points out: probability neglect. We fixate on the horrifying outcome, the numerator, the bad thing happening, and we completely ignore or downplay the actual tiny probability, the denominator of it happening.
The scary story trumps the statistics.
Every time, if it's vivid enough, it leads to totally irrational fears, misallocated resources, bad public policy, all because a scary thought was easier to bring to mind than a boring statistic. System 1 eats up stories, not spreadsheets.
Okay, so we love easy recall, and we love a coherent story. It feels like our brains are just desperate to fit things into neat boxes, doesn't it?
That's a perfect way to put it. And that desire leads us straight to the next big one: the representativeness heuristic. Basically, we judge how likely something is based on how much it resembles or matches a stereotype or prototype we already have in our heads.
So if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck,
Huh.
we assume it's a duck, even if statistically it's more likely to be, I don't know, a very convincing robot duck.
Exactly. We prioritize that resemblance, that fit with the stereotype, over actual statistical information like base rates, how common things really are.
Kahneman Steve the librarian example nails this.
It's the classic. They give participants this description of Steve: shy, withdrawn, helpful, meek, tidy, needs order, passion for detail. All that stuff.
Okay, sounds like a librarian stereotype. Maybe a bit dated, but yeah.
Totally fits the stereotype. Then they ask, is Steve more likely to be a librarian or a farmer?
And everyone picks librarian.
Overwhelmingly. Because the description represents their idea of a librarian so well, but they totally ignore the crucial fact: the base rate. In the U.S., there are vastly more male farmers than male librarians, like over 20 times more. So statistically, even with that personality, Steve is much more likely to be a farmer.
But System 1 just grabs the stereotype match and runs with it. Ignores the numbers.
Completely ignores them. It substitutes resemblance for probability. It's efficient, but deeply biased.
And it gets even weirder, like logically impossible, with the Linda problem. That one always blows my mind.
It really does. So they describe Linda: 31, single, outspoken, bright, philosophy major, concerned with social justice, anti-nuclear activist in college.
Okay, paints a picture.
Definitely. Then they ask, which is more probable? A, Linda's a bank teller, or B, Linda is a bank teller and is active in the feminist movement.
And people pick B, right? The feminist bank teller.
The vast majority, even people who know statistics. But think about it logically.
Okay. The group of feminist bank tellers has to be smaller than the group of all bank tellers.
Yeah.
Right? It's a subset.
Exactly. It's a basic rule of probability. A conjunction, A and B, cannot be more probable than one of its parts, A. Yet because the description of Linda feels so much more representative of a feminist bank teller.
Our intuition screams B and overrides the logic.
Totally. System 1's feeling of plausibility is just too strong. Kahneman calls it the conjunction fallacy. Even when people have the logic explained, they often still feel like B is more likely.
That's incredible. System 2 gives up.
Often, yes, it's lazy, or the intuitive pull is too strong. Interestingly, they found they could reduce the error by changing the question slightly. Instead of more probable, asking out of 100 women like Linda, how many are bank tellers versus feminist bank tellers?
Framing it as frequencies, like actual groups of people.
Exactly. That makes the subset relationship more concrete, more visual, and helps System 2 kick in and see the logic. It's less abstract.
So we're bad with base rates, bad with basic probability logic. And it seems we're also pretty bad with sample sizes. The law of small numbers thing.
Oh yeah, that's another big one. We intuitively think small samples should behave just like large samples. We expect them to perfectly mirror the overall population.
But they don't. Right. Small samples are way more variable.
Way more variable. Kahneman uses this great example about kidney cancer rates across U.S. counties. They found the counties with the highest rates A and D. The counties with the lowest rates were mostly rural, sparsely populated counties.
So small populations.
Small populations, exactly. Now, System 1 immediately wants to find a cause. Oh, the low rates must be the healthy rural lifestyle, or the high rates must be poverty or pollution in those specific rural areas.
Makes sense, kinda. Looking for a reason.
But the real reason, it's just statistics, it's chance. Extreme outcomes, very high or very low, are just mathematically much more likely to pop up in small samples. Flip a coin 4 times, getting all heads isn't that weird. Flip it 1,000 times, getting all heads is basically impossible.
So the extremes in small counties were likely just random noise, not some specific rural factor.
Precisely. But our minds hate randomness as an explanation. We crave causal stories. We are, as Kahneman says, far too willing to reject the belief that much of what we see in life is random.
So if I see a fund manager who had, like, 2 amazing years,
Your System 1 screams genius.
instead of could be luck in a small sample.
Exactly. System 1 is great at finding causes, even fake ones. It's terrible with merely statistical facts. Stereotypes, for Kahneman, are just how System 1 efficiently represents categories useful, but prone to ignoring the stats. We have to consciously force ourselves to think about base rates and sample size.
Okay, this next one, the halo effect, feels super familiar. It's that thing where your very first impression of someone or something just casts this, well, this halo, positive or negative, over everything else.
Totally. That first bit of information carries way too much weight. System 1 jumps on it, creates a quick, coherent story, this person is great, or this company is shady, and then everything else gets filtered through that initial judgment.
We see what we expect to see, basically.
Pretty much. Kahneman even caught himself doing this when he was grading student exams back in the day. His initial method was to grade all of one student's essay answers before moving to the next student.
Okay, seems logical.
But he noticed a problem. If a student's first essay was really strong, he found himself subconsciously grading their later, maybe weaker essays more generously.
The halo effect from the first good answer.
Exactly. And vice versa. A poor first essay could unfairly taint his view of their subsequent, potentially better answers. His overall impression was coloring his specific judgments.
So how did he fix it? Sounds tricky.
He changed his whole process. Instead of grading student by student, he started grading question by question. So he'd grade everyone's answer to question 1, then everyone's answer to question 2, and so on.
Comparing apples to apples for each cluster removes the individual student halo.
Precisely. It led to fairer, more accurate grades. But here's the kicker. He admitted it made grading less comfortable for him.
Less comfortable.
What? Because without the halo effect smoothing things over, he became much more aware of the inconsistencies within a single student's performance. One great answer, one mediocre one. The halo effect had created a nicer, more coherent, but false story of consistent ability. He had to trade his comfort for accuracy.
Wow, that's telling. We prefer the coherent illusion, even when we know better. And this isn't just about grades, is it? It massively impacts how we see business success and leadership.
Hugely. We look back at successful companies or leaders and attribute everything to amazing skill, brilliant strategy, perfect execution. The halo effect gives them this aura of invincibility.
But Kahneman argues luck plays a much bigger role than we like to admit.
A much bigger role. He calls it the illusion of understanding. Take Google. Obviously, incredible innovation and skill involved, but they also had moments of pure luck. Like, remember that story where they tried to sell the company early on for like $1 million and the buyer refused?
Yeah, if that deal had gone through.
It's a totally different world. Exactly. But our minds struggle with non-events. The things that could have happened but didn't. The lucky breaks, the competitors who failed. We build these neat narratives focusing only on the skill and success we can see.
So those business books, like Built to Last or In Search of Excellence, they claim to find the secrets of successful companies.
Kahneman is pretty skeptical. He suggests that often the good practices they identify are really just perceived because the company became successful. Success creates the halo, which then makes us see their practices as brilliant.
It's correlation, not necessarily causation. The success might have come first, partly due to luck, and the perception of good management followed.
Precisely. And studies show that companies labeled most admired often tend to underperform in subsequent years, while less admired ones might improve. This suggests a lot of it is just random fluctuation, regression to the mean, masked by the halo effect, creating these illusory patterns of consistent excellence or failure.
It's a powerful reminder that these compelling success stories often leave out a huge character. Luck. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Have you ever had a number just get stuck in your head? Like you hear a price, even if it seems random, and then you can't help but compare everything else to it.
Oh, absolutely. That's the anchoring effect in a nutshell. It's one of the most robust biases out there. Our judgments get pulled towards an initial value, the anchor, even if that number is completely arbitrary or irrelevant.
And we don't adjust enough away from it.
Exactly. The adjustment is almost always insufficient. System 1 grabs onto that first number, and System 2 just doesn't do enough work to move away from it, even if logically it should.
The Wheel of Fortune experiment is the classic demo of this, isn't it?
It's brilliant. They had people spin this wheel, which was rigged to stop on either 10 or 65, totally random number generated in front of them.
Okay.
Then, right after seeing that number, they asked them to estimate something completely unrelated, the percentage of African nations in the UN. The results were stark. The people who saw the number 10 on the wheel guessed, on average, around 25%. But the people who saw 65, their average guess was way higher, around 45%.
Just from seeing a random number beforehand? That's wild.
Totally wild. That arbitrary number served as an anchor, dragging their estimates towards it, even though it had zero connection to the actual answer.
And it's not just random wheels. It happens constantly. Like estimating Gandhi's age at death, asking if he was older than, say, 114 anchors you high, asking if he was older than 35 anchors you low.
Or house prices. That asking price is a massive anchor. Even if you know it's inflated, even if you tell yourself you'll ignore it, it still influences what you end up thinking is a reasonable offer. It sets the starting point for the negotiation in your head.
It's insidious. Even charitable donations.
Yep. Charities know this. If they first ask an anchoring question like, would you consider a gift of $5? Even that small anchor can significantly increase the average donation compared to just asking for an open-ended amount. It frames the subsequent request.
It really makes you wonder how many decisions are being subtly steered by numbers we barely even noticed. Budgets, salaries, purchase prices.
And here's the really sobering part. Even experts aren't immune. They did studies with real estate agents, gave them property info, but also an artificially high or low asking price, the anchor.
And the agents? The pros?
They were influenced by the anchor almost as much as inexperienced students were. And the craziest part, they completely denied being influenced. They believed their evaluation was purely objective based on the property facts.
Wow. So not only are we anchored, but we're often blind to the fact that we're anchored.
Exactly. System 1 does the anchoring automatically below the radar, and System 2 fails to correct adequately and often doesn't even realize correction is needed.
So what's the practical takeaway, especially in negotiations?
Kahneman is very clear. The first offer is powerful. It sets the anchor. If the other side throws out an outrageous number, don't just counter with something slightly less outrageous that keeps their anchor in play.
So what do you do?
You have to actively break the anchor. Make it clear their number is completely unacceptable, maybe even walk away for a moment, change the subject dramatically, anything to disrupt the influence of that initial number before you start making adjustments from it. You need to consciously fight that automatic pull. Hashtag overconfidence and the dangers of intuition in complex settings.
Okay, so we've seen all these ways our intuition can get tripped up by biases. But there's this common advice, right? Trust your gut. Especially for leaders. Big decisions.
Yeah, that advice is everywhere, but Kahneman really pours cold water on it, especially when things are complex or uncertain. He points out this deep-seated optimistic bias we have.
We just naturally lean towards positive outcomes.
Massively. We tend to overestimate the benefits of our plans, underestimate the costs and the time things will take, and just generally spin these rosy scenarios of success while ignoring all the ways things could go wrong.
Which leads directly to overconfidence.
Exactly. And it's not just regular folks. Experts are often the most overconfident, which is kind of scary.
Why are we, especially experts, so prone to this?
Several things feed into it. One huge factor is the planning fallacy. Think about big projects, building projects, software development, even writing a book.
They always seem to take longer and cost more than planned.
Always. And Kahneman says part of this is because there's often an incentive to be optimistic in the planning stage to get the project approved. Realistic plans might not even get off the ground. Plus, we just genuinely fail to imagine all the potential roadblocks.
We focus on the best case scenario.
We do. Then there's competition neglect. We get so focused on our own awesome plans, our own strengths, our brilliant strategy.
That we forget everyone else is doing the same thing.
Precisely. Like that Disney exec Kahneman mentions, admitting it was pure hubris that led multiple studios to release huge movies on the exact same day. They were all just looking inward, overconfident in their own plans, ignoring the competition.
Leads to everyone losing out. And
Yep.
what about illusory skill? Believing we're better than we are, especially in unpredictable fields.
Oh, that's rampant in areas like investing or predicting market trends. People genuinely believe they have a special skill to beat the market consistently.
Even though the evidence suggests it's mostly luck.
Overwhelmingly, yes, especially in the short term. They might be using sophisticated tools, analyzing tons of data, but they fail to appreciate that in an efficient market, most of that information is already reflected in the price. Their confidence comes from the effort they put in, not necessarily from actual predictive ability in such a noisy system.
And then, after the fact, hindsight bias kicks in to make us feel even smarter. The I knew it all along effect.
Right. Once something happens, it seems obvious, inevitable. It's incredibly hard to remember how uncertain things felt before the event.
So we look back at a market crash or a political upset and think, of course, the signs were all there.
Exactly. Which makes us overestimate our ability to predict the next event. And it also leads to really unfair judgments of people who made decisions under uncertainty that turned out badly. We judge them based on the outcome, which we now know, not based on the probabilities as they looked at the time.
It really messes with our ability to learn from the past accurately. So if intuition and confidence are so often flawed, can we ever trust expert intuition? Is it always an illusion?
Not always. Kahneman leans on Herbert Simon's definition here. Intuition is basically recognition.
Recognition, meaning pattern matching.
Exactly. True experts think chess masters, experienced firefighters, skilled doctors. They've spent thousands and thousands of hours in their specific domain. Their System 1 has learned to recognize complex patterns incredibly quickly, accessing stored knowledge almost instantly. It feels like magic, but it's highly trained pattern recognition.
Okay, so it's not mystical. What conditions need to be met for that kind of reliable intuition to develop?
Two key things. First, the environment has to be sufficiently regular and predictable. Chess has fixed rules. Fire behavior follows certain physical principles. Many medical conditions have consistent symptoms and responses. There have to be reliable cues and patterns to learn.
Makes sense. And the second?
The expert needs the opportunity to learn these regularities through prolonged practice with good feedback. Lots of repetition, learning what works, what doesn't.
So what about fields like stock picking or long-term political forecasting?
Those are often what Kahneman calls zero validity or low validity environments. They're just too complex, too influenced by randomness, too many hidden variables. The regularities aren't stable enough to learn reliably. So in those fields, even expert intuition is often just that illusion of validity built on confidence rather than predictable skill.
Which is why formulas often outperform intuition in those messy domains.
Precisely. Study after study shows simple algorithms for predicting parole violations, diagnosing certain diseases, evaluating loan applications often do better than human experts.
Why? Because the formula is consistent.
Exactly. Humans are incorrigibly inconsistent, as Kahneman puts it. Our judgments get swayed by mood, recent events, irrelevant details. A formula applies the same weights to the same criteria every single time. Think of the APGAR score for newborns.
Right, that simple checklist.
Simple 5-factor score. It replaced subjective physician judgment and dramatically improved outcomes because it was objective and consistent. A life-saving formula.
So the big picture here seems to be, we often don't know what we don't know.
That's a huge takeaway. The invisible gorilla experiment is the perfect metaphor. People focus so hard on counting basketball passes, they completely miss a guy in a gorilla suit walking through the scene.
And they don't believe they missed it afterwards.
Right. They are blind to the obvious, and then they are blind to their blindness. It shows how tunnel-visioned our attention can be, and how overconfident we are about what we perceive.
And System 2 is often just lazy. It doesn't double-check System 1 enough.
Often, yeah. It takes effort to be skeptical, to question your gut feelings. Kahneman calls people who do this engaged. They fight that intellectual sloth. And when we're tired or stressed, ego depletion System 2 is even weaker, making us more gullible.
And our minds just want that coherent story, even from flimsy evidence.
They desperately want it. Which brings us back to things like misunderstanding regression to the mean. Like those flight instructors Kahneman talked to.
The ones who thought punishing bad performance worked better than praising good performance.
Yeah. Because when they praised an exceptionally good flight, likely good skill plus good luck, the next one was usually closer to average. worse.
Hmm.
When they yelled after an exceptionally bad flight, bad skill plus bad luck, the next one was usually closer to average, better.
So they thought the praise made them worse and the punishment made them better.
Exactly. They invented a causal story. But it was just statistics, regression to the mean. Extreme performances tend to be followed by more average ones, regardless of praise or punishment. But our System 1 hates statistical explanations. It demands causes.
It all comes back to System 1 running the show based on what you see is all there is, and System 2 often just nodding along.
Pretty much. System 1 is amazing, but it doesn't know its limits. And System 2 is often too lazy or too busy to check, leading us to jump to conclusions and be way too confident in our often shaky understanding.
Wow. Okay, that wraps up part 2 of our deep dive into thinking fast and slow. We have really, really uncovered how our thinking is just packed with these shortcuts, these heuristics that are efficient but also create these systematic errors, these illusions.
Yeah, it's sobering, isn't it? That feeling of confidence, not a reliable guide to accuracy. We've seen how things like availability, representativeness, the halo effect, anchoring, they're constantly quietly shaping how we see the world and the choices we make.
Often completely without us realizing it.
Completely. And understanding these traps, really internalizing how they work, it's not just interesting psych trivia, it's fundamental for making better judgments, for being less wrong.
It's definitely a call for some intellectual humility.
Yeah.
Recognizing that our gut feelings, while sometimes useful, can be seriously flawed, especially when things get complex or uncertain.
That key idea. We often don't know what we don't know. Our brain builds a coherent story, and we buy it even if the foundations are shaky.
So in part 3, the final part of our series on this book, we're going to shift focus a bit. We'll dive into how we actually make choices.
Yeah, looking at prospect theory, loss aversion, how we think about risk, why we're predictably irrational even when it comes to things like money or our health, it gets even more fascinating.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But for now, here's a thought to chew on until next time.
Okay.
Knowing all this now about these biases,
Yeah.
will you actually get better at spotting them? In yourself? In others? Will you become a more critical thinker?
Or, here's the unsettling alternative. Will your System 1 just cleverly absorb this information into its existing narratives, making you feel even more confident that you understand it all, that you're the exception, an even stronger illusion of understanding?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. Food for thought. Until then, stay sharp, everyone.
And stay skeptical.